to be. Surprise, it's Senator Flip Flop. John McCain is rolling around in his grave. This is who is in charge of this. It's him. Isn't this hilarious? And again, so I just re-put these things because he's like, oh, like, this is totally fine. The F it is, Lindsay. I know you can read. I know you can figure it out. That's not true. The CBO sets the baseline under law. Right? Again, CBO sets the baseline under law. Budget committee chairs, that's Senator Flip Flop, can make adjustments or set temporary enforcement levels, but not the baseline itself. So I don't care who said something that was not correct. That doesn't mean anything, Lindsay. Lindsay's like, some guy I was at a cafe in DC and he said it was fine. It's like, Lindsay, please. Like, stay with us, Lindsay. Stay with us. Can somebody in South Carolina please not let this man be reelected? Have we not had enough of Lindsey Graham having no spine? Of all the conservatives with no spine, like, how is this man alive? Oh, here we go. Here's some more weirdness from Lindsay.
This stuff literally works, and they hate it because it's money that could have gone to the government went back into the economy. What they don't realize, actually, the government gets more money. They just...
What? Here's the thing. Like, and I'm sure Republicans are like, yeah, like, no, he did not say anything that makes any sense. If whatever he said, oh, this stuff works, math works one way, right? Like, correctly, or it does not work correctly. You can't invent a different type of math. This is what, like, God help us with, oh, now Lindsay's this is the side I'm talking about. Like, what in the F is this? And then later, it's so funny. After Lindsey Graham, I was like, it's like, did you get a 3-year-old to draw this with crayon? Oh, no, Lindsay did. But then Chuck Schumer had a similar side that looks like a 3-year-old drew it after this. Don't worry, guys. Senator Flip Flop's got it all under control. He's got a really professional side here. So it all... Thank you. I love Cat DJ. I'm going to have to get another cat to cuddle me to get through this week, truly. But don't worry, Senator Flip Flop has this under control. He wrote it all down. Why is his hand? Let's get rid of the Department of Education. Can Lindsey Graham go back to school and learn how to write? Is he okay? Of course he's not okay. He hasn't been okay for a while. But this is where he really gets out of control with the lies.
The tax rates since 2017, the top rate has been 37. If these tax cuts expire, your taxes, if you're a family of 4, will go up by $1,700. And we'll go back to the 39.6 rate.
Just want to be clear that the only people that put out a real budget was Kamala Harris, right? And that the tax cuts for the middle class were extended. I agree. Steve Bannon says the same thing. And one of the things I agree with Steve Bannon it's fine to extend these tax cuts for the middle class, especially if we're taxing income at a higher rate than capital gains, money's going to stay at the top of the economy. We should extend these tax cuts, right? I mean, for the middle class. That was always going to happen. And I just also want to point out, this is a lie. Who set these tax cuts to expire? Trump. Trump did. The Republicans, for the middle class. They're in perpetuity for the rich and corporations, but for the middle class, they were set to expire. It was conservatives that did this. I love watching conservatives blame the BS they do on Democrats because MAGA can't read. But yeah, it was conservatives. Ooh, puzzle piece. Give me 1 second. Okay, we are good. Not a robot. But yeah, it was conservatives that did that. That's why they're expiring. But in the budget, the Democratic budget that was released for the middle class, the tax cuts were extended. And keep in mind, the tax cuts for the rich and corporations in perpetuity, they're even deeper, right? Like they're getting even more kickbacks, more subsidies, more of everything.
Here's a question for the country. How much should the federal government take of anybody's income What's a fair share? 37% seems pretty damn fair to me. Over a third of what you make, and that doesn't count state and local taxes. The number they would pick is probably
I'm going to replay that so we can hear again. But again, this is a pathological lie. This is one of my favorite conservative lies about taxes that he's about to talk about tax rates. Oh, they probably want to take 90. So before he says it, I just want to say the truth. Understand top marginal tax rates. It's not your entire income. This is a lie, right? It's, hey, if you make above, say, 10 million, then you're taxed at this percentage. It is not your entire income. Lindsey Graham has been telling this lie over and over and over since I knew who he was. But if you understand tax law, nothing he's about to say is correct. He's just counts on MAGA not understanding anything. And they're like, yeah, like, no.
It's pretty damn fair to me. Over a third of what you make, and that doesn't count state and local taxes. The number they would pick is probably 90. So is 37% fair? I think yes. Most Americans think 25% is fair. Jesus wants 10%.
Not one word that man says is factually correct, is part of reason or logic. And MAGA's like, yeah, good point. No, you weirdos give 10% of your income to Jesus because you just want to, on top of taxes. That has nothing to do with this conversation. And I think tithe 15% in some religions. That's not even necessarily true. But again, if you understand tax rates, you're not taxed top marginal tax rates. It's not like your entire income, well, just give us 90% of it. It's like once you make above 10 million, now the rest, however many million above that, is taxed at 90%. Now, let's say during the golden age of capitalism, billionaires or, extremely wealthy people used to pay taxes. Now what billionaires do is they loan money back to the US government. They don't pay taxes. They say, don't worry, if you don't tax us, it will trickle down. We now have 40 years of data that says things are only trickling up. There's only transfers of wealth going up, not down, right? And then they say, hey, oh, look, you guys are in debt because of all these tax cuts you keep giving to the rich. Well, we'll loan you some money and charge you interest to pay down your debt principal. Do you see how insane this is? That's what tax brackets are for, marginal tax rates are for. It's not for your entire income. It's saying, hey, after a reasonable amount, now we're taxing you, right? And this is something other countries do. Lindsey Graham acting like this is unheard of is just a lie.
There is no number they won't embrace. So somewhere between 90 and 10, 37 is fair. This is not rewarding the wealthy, is creating a number that makes sense. 37% going to the federal government is a fair share. It's over a third of what you make. And that doesn't count state and local taxes.
I was just looking it up because I didn't want to say it and be wrong because Trump loves Eisenhower, and I'm not going to say, Eisenhower is a bit of a racist, if you will. He did a little Operation Trump, always compares his illegal immigration operation, deportation operation to, which I'm just going to say the opposite. Eisenhower called it Operation Dry Front. Think of the opposite of those two words and then you'll have it, right? I just don't want to say it because, that's a slur. But again, Trump will be like, Eisenhower had it all right when it comes to hating brown people. But then let's look at Eisenhower's top marginal tax rate. 1953 to 1961, the top marginal tax rate in the United States was 91%. For most of his time in office. The guy he idolizes is when it comes to deportation of brown people. Suddenly, he doesn't want to acknowledge that this was the tax rate during the golden age of capitalism. And again, I want to look. So let me make sure I get this right. This rate applied to individual incomes. And again, I'll tell you the adjusted for inflation in a second. Individual incomes of 200,000 or more per year, or couples making 400,000 and above, which would be equivalent to roughly 1.7 million for singles and 3.4 million in 2015 dollars respectively. So, and then it would be higher today. But I'm just giving you an idea of, hey, once you as a couple make above 3.4 million, then that's the top tax rate. It's not that all your income is taxed at 91%. But again, this is people who are extremely wealthy. And the other option is, oh, we're in debt because nothing's trickling down. The middle class is just losing wealth, cannot survive, can't afford anything. Now we're being tariffed on top of it, and billionaires are just loaning the government money and charging us interest on top. It's absolutely delusional. Oh, and here's where Lindsay really goes off.
All my colleagues are going to vote for this bill. You should be proud, and you should talk about it, because it's going to make us all safer, and it's going to make us all more prosperous. Me being budget chairman is a quirk in the history of the Senate. This is not my thing normally, but I have really gotten into it, and I've learned a lot thanks to my colleagues, and I'm proud to have the honor of being budget chairman at a time I think it matters the most. To all my colleagues.
The time I think it matters the most. Yeah, being a grifter and lying for Trump, because he has always, and again, now I'm going to drift into my opinion on this, but I think that he has always had something on Lindsey Graham, and whatever he needs someone to tell a completely egregious lie or do something completely horrible, like literally ignoring the rules of the Senate and reconciliation bills, and every precedent, make up a new way to do math out of thin air and gaslight and lie to the American people. Here comes Senator Flip-Flop, because God knows what people have on him. Nothing else, I've thought about this for a long time, nothing else makes any sense. You know, like, who would want to be this person? I'll say this, like, Tom Tillis has done pretty, been on the side of egregious votes over and over again. I think he's just realizing, like, this is not going to be remembered well in history. And Lindsey Graham knows that on some level. It is like, for some reason, he still has to do this, be the weird patsy that makes up fake math and pathologically lies to the American people and takes credit for all this. That's crazy. Like, I mean, why would you want to do that unless you had to do it? That's, I guess, the point I'm trying to make. Like, I don't know any sane person that would take the fall for this and be like, it was me that made up fake math, other than him. Because he always seems to be in these situations leveraged to the hilt. Oh, I love Senator Gary Peters from Michigan. I love him. Listen, this is a good one, too.
This bill will blow up the national debt. Since President George Washington gave his farewell address, our nation's leaders have warned against the dangers of accumulating a national debt. 15 years ago, Admiral Mike Mullen, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, stated, quote, "The most significant threat to our national security is our debt." The national debt is at an all-time high. $36.2 trillion. And just in the last 16 years, it has tripled. Our annual deficits frequently exceed $1.5 trillion, including a record $3.1 trillion deficit in fiscal year 2020 during the Trump administration. Unfortunately, these are the first of many grave financial milestones that we face. Within the next decade, our country will spend more on servicing the debt than we do on any other federal account outside of Social Security. Our fiscal house is basically on fire. But if our Republican colleagues jam through this bill, it's not going to pour water on that fire, it's going to pour gasoline on those flames.
Let's assume it's an electrical fire. I mean, this is the dumbest thing we could possibly do, and the most antithetical thing to being a fiscal conservative. This is how I know MAGA can't read or do math. Every single thing you all said you stood for, Trump has gone against. Everything. Everything. Like, and I could even make that argument for immigration. Like, I always talk about this, which I don't even like this, right? Through executive order, Joe Biden lowered encounters at the southern border by 75% in 6 months, leading the end of that 6 months being December 2024. Now, that's probably a good thing to MAGA. I don't like kings ruling through executive order without changing the law. That's very scary to me, right? And it's like, do I think that Trump is doing the right thing with immigration? No, he's breaking the law over and over and over. He's violating the Constitution at every turn. And you ought to say, oh, isn't it great what he's doing with the border? No, because he's eroding all of our rights. He's eroding our due process rights. If you think it's good to have your rights eroded, I would say then you don't understand the Constitution, period. It's one thing if you go through Congress, there are law changes, we do proper immigration reform, which we've needed for decades and decades, and this actually moves through Congress. You amend the asylum laws legally. Cool story. What you're doing now is egregious and antithetical to American democracy and the Constitution. Period. Which we can get into if we have time, because I also have some stuff. Maybe we'll get to it this week. I also have some stuff on that birthright citizenship Supreme Court ruling. Well, it's more about nationwide injunctions, but we'll get there. I don't know if I want to read all these. If you want to go to True Social and see Trump attacking Tom Tillis all day yesterday, you can. I don't know if I want to read through them. Like, I mean, Trump is having meltdown after meltdown after meltdown. He's having more meltdowns today, but this is all one post of him just attacking. That was yesterday at 7:40. Oh, wait, no, that's Saturday at 7:48 p.m. when he, was going to vote against the bill moving to the floor. That he posts this after that. Numerous people have come forward wanting to run in the primary against Senator Tom Tillis. I will be meeting with them over the coming weeks, looking forward for someone who will properly represent the great people of North Carolina. Sir, you've hung the great people of North Carolina out over and over and over. It's so importantly, the United States of America, thank you for your attention to this matter. I love how someone told him he heard that saying and now he writes that at the end of so many of his illogical posts. Yeah, I don't want to read. I mean, I just wanted to show you guys some of these, but I also don't want to read them. But again, this is just more BS stuff. Did Rand Paul vote no again tonight? What's wrong with this guy? Just attacking people, attacking things. Then once the bill was moved to the floor, right? Then he's giving people shout outs he likes: Rick Scott, Mike Lee, Ron Johnson, Cynthia Loomis. They, along with all the other Republican patriots who voted for the bill, are people who truly love our country. If by people who can do math and have decided to lie and grift and steal from the American people, sure. Nothing else makes sense. But then he started posting all these weird, Make America Great Again, very proud of the Republican Party. After you strong-armed and sent them all THREATSs if they didn't pass it. Yeah, cool. If you follow Capitol Hill and read the blogs, every all the pages on Capitol Hill, all the aides that work for Republican senators all say the same thing. None of them like Trump. And behind closed doors, all they talk about is how he's not smart. He has no idea what he's doing. He's a dictator. He's insane. But then when it comes down to it, they all get in line behind him. Spineless is where I was going. Then Sunday morning, he starts going after Tom Tillis again. Tom Tillis has hurt the great people of North Carolina. Even on the catastrophic flooding, nothing was done to help until I took office. Nothing has still been done to help, and that's a pathological lie. Just to be clear, That's just Trump telling a pathological lie. Then a miracle took place. By all accounts, that is not what has happened in North Carolina, and they're trying to get more FEMA aid that he's holding up. Tillis is a talker and complainer, not a doer. He's even worse than Rand, Fauci, Paul. Like, this is why I don't want to read this stuff, because this is just the ravings of a low IQ man that says men shouldn't wear makeup but won't stop wearing makeup poorly every single day. Like, it's like your grandpa that you're like, I know we need to go visit grandpa in the home, but man, he's acting so weird lately. I really don't want to go visit grandpa. That's Trump now at this point. Oh, yeah. I don't even, I mean, I just took screenshots. Great news. And then Tom Tillis announces he's not going to seek re-election. And then Trump's like, great news. Senator Tom Tillis will not be seeking re-election. Oh, it got so weird. For all cost-cutting Republicans, of which I am one, you are. If you can do math, you know that all Trump has done is drive us into debt and blown out the deficit in his first term and now. If you would have told me at least there was a pandemic at the end of his first term, an unforeseeable pandemic, at least, which was horrific. I'm not saying good, but I'm saying at least he can claim that as an excuse, even though if you can do math and follow quarter by quarter, he was massively spending and blowing out the deficit prior to that. So that's actually not an excuse, but at least that happened. This is all self-inflicted, right? Ballistic podiatry, shooting yourself in the foot. None of this had to happen other than Trump is a grifter who's trying to consolidate power in this country. None of this had to happen to us. None. Except for he's a greedy grifter and promised billionaires and corporations a bunch of stuff. So we all need to be robbed so he can pay his debts. The Trump administration has gotten cost downs very substantially for the American consumer. There's never been anything like this. No, that is not true. Which, by the way, trade deficits are up. Look it up. They're higher in May. And I've been reading a lot of analyses. Yeah. From June. Yeah, we still haven't even seen the effects of tariffs from inflation. Period. We still haven't even seen them. I don't even want to read. I start reading these. I'm like, I can't do it. Okay. Let's get to Rand Paul. So, oh my gosh, I'm going to just show, I think I have like one short clip of Rand Paul and then like a longer one, because I love when a Republican does the math for us and tells the truth. Rand Paul just tore up the Senate floor yesterday and it was brilliant.
Which brings us back to maybe we have to judge the effects of the big, not so beautiful bill by looking at what happens to the debt next year. Supporters of the bill admit it adds $270 billion to the debt next year. That's the only thing we know for certain. We don't know what happens in year 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, but we know next year this bill will grow the deficit by $270 billion. In addition, the bill increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. What does that mean? That is an admission that they know they aren't controlling the deficit. They know that the ensuing years will add trillions more. So we're adding $2 trillion this year, but they're anticipating, the authors of the bill anticipating adding more than $2 trillion next year. That doesn't sound at all conservative to me, and that's why I'm a no.
This is good and interesting, but then he really breaks it down, which it's brilliant. I need to get some more water, but I also don't want to miss this because I want to go through it. Can we all just tap the screen? Let's get to 200K real quick. I just need to go literally fill up my adorable preschool water bottle quick. It's like 5 feet away. I'll be back in 10 seconds. Oh my God. And I spilled it. God, this is not what I did. I love this water bottle, but it doesn't work. It's so cute though. It has sharks on it. God, I spilled it all over my chair. Whatever. Okay. I just want to hear this because I want to go over some of it because Rand Paul I love the logic. It's just, I wonder which aide of his wrote this because it's amazing. Okay. So this is a longer version. That was kind of a clip at first. They were clipping parts of Rand Paul's speech. And this is more of, thank you, Jen. Jen, thank you so much. You know, I love you. Jen in the chat. You are absolutely amazing. But this is this is Rand Paul's entire line of logic on the Senate floor yesterday, which was effing brilliant. No wonder Trump's crying at night alone, angry at Rand Paul. I'd be angry too if someone keeps pointing out that you can't do math. And, oh, wait, this will be helpful. What Rand Paul is doing is saying, okay, you want to play this weird game where you're making up fake math and making up a baseline that you can't legally use and trying to say that $1 trillion is zero. Okay, cool. Let me stay on that fake math and tell you how this still is going to rob us. It's brilliant.
Senator from Kentucky.
In deciding whether to vote for the big, not so beautiful bill, I've asked a very specific question. Will the deficit be more or less next year? The answer, without question, is this bill will grow the deficit. The federal government has fancy formulas and hundreds of wonky accountants who inform us of their projections over 10 years. But you often can't trust these projections. In an excellent piece written by the Foundation for Economics and Education entitled "The CBO's Projections Are Worse Than Useless," Eric Schuler writes, "Long-term analysis and language is commonplace in U.S. national politics, but it achieves no useful outcome. It confuses far more than it clarifies. It does not provide accurate estimates of long-term results. It does not improve the average voter's understanding of policy effects. And it gives politicians a means to claim they are being fiscally responsible without actually ever exercising any prudence whatsoever."
I just want to say, actually, the CBO's projections about the TCJ were pretty spot on outside of the pandemic and things that happened due to the pandemic. But yeah, in theory, I think what Rand Paul is trying to say here is like, we're doing 10-year projections and things can change, right? Like that's, I think, the nice way of saying it. Because I would say, actually, the mathematical models are pretty accurate. Math is accurate, right? There might be factors you can't account for, like someone different getting into office or a worldwide pandemic, things of that nature, but mathematical models are accurate.
Sometimes the predictions are off because a new Congress is elected and changes the law. Eric Schuler writes that for any projection of a 10-year budget to be accurate, the Congressional Budget Office has to assume that the law won't change for 10 years, even as most of the politicians that make the laws risk being replaced every 2 years, and all of them advocate for changes of one stripe or another. Schuler states that few in Washington will admit Congress has a knack for starting any proposed cuts in the later years while letting spending run wild in the immediate future. Sometimes these predictions are off by $1 trillion or so because the economy grew more slowly or more quickly than anticipated. Bruce Thompson, a former Senate aide and Assistant Secretary of Treasury, writes, "The Congressional Budget Office miscalculated the deficit last year by $1 trillion. So in deciding whether to vote for any big, monstrous bill, it helps to ask the right question. To me, the most pertinent question is, how will the bill affect the deficit in the next year? Currently, our deficit is estimated to be a little under $2 trillion this year. What will happen to the debt in 2026 if this bill passes? Well, using the math most favorable to the supporters of the bill, referred to as the policy baseline, the deficit in
saying the magic math and fake baseline never before been used that Senator Flip Flop is now introduced to try to pretend like this bill isn't driving us into terrifying amounts of debt of which our children's children will never recover? That's what he's saying. He's like, I'm just going to use their fake math and that weird policy baseline that legally can only be changed by the CBO.
2026 will still be $270 billion more than this year. So even using the math, even using the formulas that the supporters of the bill like, the deficit will grow by $270 billion next year. That's just not good if you profess to be fiscally conservative. Why will the deficit grow next year? Well, even if you argue that the 2017 tax cuts don't need to be counted in the calculation at all, the new tax cuts add up to $234 billion to the debt next year. In addition, the big not-so-beautiful bill adds new spending of over $500 billion, military, border, agricultural subsidies, etc. That spending is front-loaded and will be spent in the first 4 years of the 10-year window.
And understand, and I'll show throughout this, like, we're going to learn this about this bill, and this is something Republicans do. They front load spending. Like, most of us is going to hit us fast and hard. Sounds kind of creepy, but yeah, most of this spending, and then it's going to taper off. Like, I don't want to ruin the horrific surprise but no tax on tips. Do you think that they wrote that in? Do they ever give the poor something for all 10 years? Of course effing not. And I'll show you, I can't remember which senators, but someone's like, oh, you see how it looks like the deficit, like there's less spending as this weird bill goes on. Oh, that's because, Trump promised you no tax on tips. That's only for a few years in the beginning. Of course he took it out. They take it out. That's what Rand Paul is trying to say here. All of this spending is aggressively front-loaded and is going to hit us all at once, even under their fake policy baseline Senator Flip Flop invented.
Legislated spending is one of the few items in the bill that is exact. It isn't estimated. If they say they'll spend $500 billion, they're going to spend $500 billion, all in the first few years. So in order not to add to the deficit, the BBB, the big not so beautiful bill, has to have corresponding spending cuts to counter all the new spending. Unfortunately, the spending cuts are backloaded to the final 5 years of the 10-year window when several tax cuts expire and the spending increases are finished. In addition, elections occur every 2 years and could easily wipe out any perceived savings that might occur in the later years. The only real certainty in this budget drama are the budget years coming in the immediate future. It's the next year or two are the only things that are actually of any certainty.
He's actually he's right about that. Like, we know in the next year or two, this is how much the deficit's about to be blown out. Right. I mean, and that's true. And what he's saying is Republicans can say, hey, this is a 10-year budget. But if in 4 years, I mean, assuming we can never get Trump out of office again, the way he's violating the Constitution, maybe not. But he's saying, hey, if another president's elected or a different Congress, a different makeup of Congress, and they change laws or amend things or whatever, all of these projections later on in the second half of the bill, when they secretly cut off the no tax on tips and don't give tax cuts to the poor in perpetuity and all these things, we'll never make it there. Just like now we're sitting here argue, we need to continue the tax cuts for the middle class. Trump could have made them in perpetuity, but didn't, or all 10 years, but did not.
So if we analyze this bill from that perspective, we discover that the bill increases the debt by $500 billion in the first 5 years. This is not the CBO projection that Republicans have not liked. This is the projection they are using, says the debt will add $500 billion in the first 5 years. Now, they say somehow, miraculously, in the last 5 years, it gets to a $500 billion in savings. So it's $1 trillion shift from year 5 to year 10. The CBO scores it differently, not as encouraging, and says it adds over $3 trillion in debt. So which is it? Does this bill save $500 billion over 10, or does it add $3 trillion over 10? The truth is that even a person with a magic crystal ball, it's anybody's guess. Which brings us back to, maybe we have to judge the effects of the big, not-so-beautiful bill by looking at what happens to the debt next year. Supporters of the bill admit it adds $270 billion to the debt next year. That's the only thing we know for certain. We don't know what happens in year 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, but we know next year this bill will grow the deficit by $270 billion. In addition, the bill increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. What does that mean? That is an admission that they know they aren't controlling the deficit. They know that the ensuing year will add trillions more. So we're adding $2 trillion this year, but they're anticipating, the authors of the bill anticipating adding more than $2 trillion next year. That doesn't.
Facts. I mean, none of this makes sense. If you are fiscally conservative, everything Trump promised you, he lied to you, period, to give corporations and billionaires tax cuts. And I mean, even if you're making $400,000, because the real way to factor in, okay, how much am I going to save or pay, right? You have to factor in tariffs, right? Because now we are paying every time we go to the cash register. There's state and taxes, state and local taxes, and then there's federal taxes, right? You have to factor in all these things. And even if you're making $400,000, you're getting a few thousand back, I think. I think it's actually much less than that, $400,000. I can't remember the percentiles, but don't worry. I have this all in infographics later. Sorry. It's been a long time since I had to commit so much of these numbers to memory. But the point is, I think he's right in saying the only thing for sure we can know is what they're doing now. And what we know about that is this is horrific. But I also want to say, he can quote things about we don't know about CBO models. The CBO models were super accurate around the TCJI. If it wasn't for the pandemic, mathematical projections are accurate until something comes up they didn't account for, and then you change the projections. It's not that hard. Watching Trump. And I think it has to do with the fact conservatives don't understand math in the first place, and they don't want to admit it. So, I find it fascinating watching people who are being robbed be like, yeah, math's a lie. Yeah. Imagine if someone was robbing you and then literally talking you out of them, you're like, wait, I just saw you robbing my house. And then somehow this person's giving you an explanation. Oh, actually, I didn't rob you because math's a lie, or because your eyes are lying. Don't believe your lying eyes. That's essentially what is going on now. Oh, yeah. It's Van Hollen. I think Van Hollen, this is what I was talking about, the infographic where he talks about no tax on tips. And what Rand Paul is saying, a lot of the tax cuts are front loaded. Not for corporations and billionaires. They get it all. But for the poor and the middle class, this is a good example of that.
Look at the blue. You can see for each year, starting this year, 2025, 2006, the blue is what Senate Republicans claim their bill will add to the deficit. The red is how much more it will actually add to the deficit. So at the end of this 10-year period, what you see is Senate.
And you're looking at an overlay of the two baselines, right? The real baseline that the CBO legally sets, the legal baseline, and then the policy baseline that they invented, right? That I explained the two differences. So that's what you're looking at.
Republicans are claiming that their bill will add $441 billion, which is still a big number, but the real number when you do honest accounting, when you add up all of these, it's $4.2 trillion, a much bigger number. Now, I do want to point something out on this chart. I think Everybody watching should understand it. If you look at these orange parts, these are the additional deficits from tax cuts. Starting here in year 2029, 2030, you'll see that they actually do start going down. Why is that? It's because the tax cut that President Trump promised for no tax on tips, they phased those out. This is all
that MAGA, and I'm only saying this because God MAGA, that was every one of your reasons why you voted for Trump, even though if you read the no tax on tips bill that they're using, it's not going to include, it's not what you think it is in the first place. And actual mathematical model, it's fascinating to read mathematical models and how this will actually hurt before helping. This is not a good thing in the first place, but again, they effed you. You know what I mean? Are the corporations and billionaires tax cuts dropping off? Like, that's the weirdest thing. Why are yours?
Because the tax cut that President Trump promised for no tax on tips, they phased those out. This is all just a make-believe ruse. Yeah, we start providing no tax on tips, but those disappear. The tax breaks for wealthy people, they go on. And they go on not just for this 10-year period, but the reason they violate all the rules of reconciliation is because they keep going on after that. And as Senator Merkley said, if you look at the entire history of the Byrd rule, that's Senator Byrd, it was designed to make sure that 51 senators through a vote could not make these kind of permanent changes in any area, but specifically they were worried about areas that increased the national deficit and debt. So what Republican senators are doing is not only misleading the American people, but they're violating the entire structure that carved out this special procedure that we call reconciliation for the budget, which was intended to lower deficits and debts, not have them go on forever. As Senator Merkley has pointed out, I think if you look over a 30-year period, we're talking about $35 trillion plus additional to the debt. And Republicans want to hide that from the American people. That is budget fraud, pure and simple, and it is a violation of the rules of the United States Senate. This whole special structure that was created not to blow bigger holes in the debt and deficits, but to actually try to constrain them. So shame on everybody who's part of this fraud on the American people.
Imagine MAGA, like, if you talk to, I mean, we all have family members, my parents, everyone I know, they're like, stop doing math. Stop pointing out the truth. I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me the truth. I support Trump bending me over backwards. Like, none of this makes any sense. We are all being robbed. You are not magically not being robbed. It's kind of like when I love to play those videos where people are like, President Trump, I know you didn't mean to take my government job. It's like, they honestly, I don't know. I think some of them were very confused. Yeah, it's you too. It's you too. Oh, there's a poll. Thank you so much, Cootery. I don't know what's happened in TikTok. I'm going to have to do the chat. The chat got so much smaller with the latest TikTok studio updates. So it's hard for me to read it. I'm going to separate it out. Thanks, Cootery. You are amazing. There's a poll. Everyone, please help us answer it. And do your heart me's if you have not done them. And let's get to 250K. Let's go, arthritis. We can control nothing but tapping. And can I just, because I know this is all heavy, so I just want to tell you something really funny. I just got an email from TikTok, not my usual ones where I've been kicked out of some program for doing something wrong that I didn't know I did. But this is actually kind of funny. I've been selected to join. I'm in so many weird TikTok programs, and I don't know why I get chosen, but this one's truly awesome. Guess what? TikTok program I've been selected to join today, and I have access to their Discord. Even the TikTok Gaming Creator Fund and Program. Has anyone ever seen me gaming? I am joining that Discord though, and I will report back what's going on in there. But I think I'm going to become a gamer. I've been selected. I'm good. I've never gamed on this app, but now it's the first time for everything. I'll be playing solitaire. Just maybe it's because I'm casting. Oh my gosh! I think it's probably because I'm casting. Like normally, this feature I use to do this is for gaming. So maybe that's why they think I'm a gamer. I don't know. I'm joining though. I'm going to be all up in that Discord, and they're going to be like, "Who are you? Where did you come from?" Don't worry about it. I'm a gamer. It's fun. Yeah, Minesweeper. Like, it's big. Playing Minesweeper. It's the latest thing. You kids have never heard of it. Like it should. They'll be like, "What game are you playing?" Solitaire. You guys have probably never heard of it. Don't worry about it. It's not a first person pew game. Yeah, I'll play Nokia Snake. Oh, I love that. Don't even start me on that game. Actually, what I would do is play Super Nintendo games. I love or maybe Nintendo 64, like Mario Kart, that type of stuff. I love that stuff. But yeah, I'll report back now that I'm a gamer on TikTok. I'll report back on what's going on in that Discord. Oh, and this is a perfect break. Okay, so whilst I was making these clips of the debates on the congressional floor, and I was waiting for like more like relevant clips to update, I was like, oh, I'll do like commercial breaks where I'll just show some other things going on, and then I can cover other issues. Okay, these aren't going to be lighthearted commercial breaks, so just prepare yourself. Like, remember how Senator Alex Padilla from California was tackled trying to ask Christine a question and all of that, and handcuffed. They said he wasn't handcuffed, but yeah. Well, listen to what happened to someone that works for him. Because I did not hear about that. Well, and I haven't been closely following the news. I don't know if anyone's heard about this, but I don't remember reading about this. And I was like, what? This is why every time I travel, I'm just like, I just erase everything.
Prominent LA political strategist Rick Taylor was reportedly detained by federal authorities while recently trying to re-enter the United States. Now, according to the West Side Current, Taylor and his family were on their way home from Turks and Caicos on June 20th when he was stopped by authorities at Miami International Airport. His wife and daughter passed through customs with no issues, but he was held for about an hour before he was released without explanation. Taylor, former chief of staff to Zev Yaroslavsky, believes his detention may have been politically motivated due to his Democratic affiliations. Prominent LA political strategist.
And I think like I didn't screenshot any articles. I think I looked up an article and he's like, I'm going to get it wrong. It actually might, hold on. I'm just updating the gift code. Thank you guys for reminding me with the gift codes. That helps me a lot because if you could see how many screens and buttons I have going on, it's a lot to remember to do anything. So the reminders truly do help. Let me just reset the gift goal and I'm going to go back and read. But I also read in an article, I think, I'm trying to remember, was it a shirt? Or like, hold on, it might say it here. Next time I'll think twice. This is a quote from him. Yeah, here we go. ICE detains former staffer for California Senator Alex Padilla Airport for packing, quote, oh, thank you for the subscription, for resubscribing, Taco But Blue. I like that. I like what you're doing. Don't make me bring out my taco hat. If you guys have seen me debating in the last week, why does my taco hat look this way? What's happening on this screen? I don't know. It's actually yellow and it's a taco. I've been having a lot of problems with, I don't know what's going on with the color on this live, but that's so strange. Sorry, it's a long story. Someone asked me if something happened to my cat earlier. No, I'm in Denver and like I'm staying with a friend and so, like, I don't know if it's a TikTok studio update or something, but like the color has been really distorted in my lives. And yeah, so I'm trying to figure that out. Like yesterday it was fine. And then when I turned everything on today and updated TikTok studio, I reset all the color stuff just to make sure it wasn't anything crazy. So I still haven't figured that out, but I didn't have time to figure it out. So I'll figure it out tonight. That's why that looks like that. And I still don't know what is going on there. That was just the latest thing when I updated TikTok studio. But again, back to the former staffer for California Senator Alex Padilla, and they detained allegedly for packing an Obama Biden campaign t-shirt. This is the quote from Rick Taylor. "Next time I'll think twice about what I pack. That's not something I ever thought I'd have to consider at this country." Rick Taylor was abruptly detained while standing in the security line and taken to a holding room. Ironically, it was his wife, and here's born in Vietnam and now a U.S. citizen, who had feared being flagged herself during the family trip with their daughter. Rick Taylor ran Senator Padilla's earlier campaign for city council and worked for many of California's most powerful political figures over the last 40 years. He compared his detainment to how Senator Padilla was arrested and handcuffed during a Homeland Security press conference in Los Angeles. So yeah, these are strange